Has a go and scores majestically.
Oh my word! Fabulous!
Oh, what a strike that is. Simply spectacular.
Oh, it's an absolute beauty, isn't it?
The best goal of the night.
It all starts here.
Hello and welcome to National League 72 for a very special episode. We're here at the home of Bromley Football Club, Hayes Lane.
We've got two special guests. We've got the first team manager, Andy Woodman, and we've also got one of my former teammates and now the CEO of Bromley, Mark Hammond. So I'm delighted to say that we are sat here with the Bromley CEO and one of my former teammates, Mark Hammond. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, just talk to us about your position and what your day entails for Bromley.
I am the Chief Executive Officer of Bromley Football Club, and I am the leader, the brains, the drive, the energy, the passion, but also the kind of glue that keeps everything together and keeps everything moving in the right direction.
What is it like for a CEO on a match day in the National League?
Well, before the EFL, we could go wherever we wanted, and that's one of the beauties of being in the National League or in non-league, is that you can support the game, but also the match day experience is a lot more fluid. It's not as rigid, and we found the transition from National League to EFL has actually become it's just a little bit rigid, which isn't actually as a culture and environment. It actually isn't us as a club. We're not rigid. So we've had to figure out, which we have finally, this at the back end of the season, of how we can actually sort of adopt and foster those National League sort of supporter match day behaviours and build them into the EFL way. And being the CEO on a match day, you can't help but just, get up for the buzz. We're constantly figuring out how to be better. And I think those National League experiences have helped us go into the EFL, if that makes sense. I believe in everything that we've done is about progress over time. Nobody that's been successful has done it like that, or used a microwave to get success. It's always followed the principles of, planning, hard work, all the attributes that you need to work towards success, wherever that may be.
One thing I really like, when we came into this boardroom, you straight away showed us your flip chart, and you've got some old notes and things that you've kept as like a keepsake, including part of the pitch. Why is it important for you to keep those memoirs, as it were, from the success you had in the National League?
Because that keeps you grounded, and you can never forget where you've come from, but also those key moments that got to where you are going and where you are now. Football has its cruel ways, and if you take your finger off the pulse, football can really hurt you. But we are always reminded as well of the heritage of this club. We keep the old with the new, and that's important. It's important grounding, but it's important to know the foundation of this football club and what it's built on, but also where it's travelling. When Webby scored, it changed everything. But it also was relief for all of the hard work that everybody, all of the staff, had placed into that moment. And to think it came down to a penalty kick is huge. But I think because of the passion and the drive and the energy that all people have put into it, I think that penalty kick carried that in a weird spiritual way But that penalty kick carried all of that, all of the journeys, all of the troubles, all of the problems, but all of the positive performances, people that have come, people that have, stayed, was all centred into that kick. Once that happened, that was it. It was like, right, okay, it's game on. We had to rip up a pitch, redevelop the stands, crush barriers, lighting, hospitality, zones, council.
You're, 4 years into it. Andy Woodman comes in. What is the relationship between yourself and Andy? Because obviously you've been in not in his position, but in a coaching position. You've been a player, so you can probably see it from a different perspective. And when Andy came in, he obviously came from Arsenal with a certain way of doing things, a certain belief. I imagine he wanted to make a lot of changes once he first came in. How did that relationship start, and how is it now?
Yeah, so it's brilliant. I was probably like the ex-wife. Look, to give credit to the previous staff members, that Woody wouldn't have the platform he's got without Neil Smith or Mark Goldberg, because there were small successes along the way and the foundation was being built. It's just now Woody's now taken it and he's accelerated it and built it to the level it is. He's probably the angriest, happiest, warm, loving manager you'll ever meet. And he's a top bloke. He's great to trade with, great to learn from. It was love-hate, it's now love-hate. And then it's hate, love, but he's a great guy. And the mark of him was, my mum went through some heart troubles, and he was the first to send her flowers, which shows, the qualities of what he's got. And going back to sort of his managerial traits, he's a brilliant motivator and man manager. And really enjoy working with him. And the past 4 years has been the both of us have been. He'd never been a manager, I'd never been a CEO, and then 4 years down the line, we've come together and he's built on the pitch and I've built off the pitch.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure the relationship with Andy will continue to blossom, and we'll hear from the gaffer after this break.
"47 years of promoting boxing. What a ride it's been." I was 23 years old at the time. I got an invite from the Boxing Board of Control to take a licence out. Back then, it was all run by the cartel.
We have a new promoter in British Championship Boxing, Frank Warren.
People liked it, I think, the fact that someone was taking the cartel on. I've never been afraid about shaking things up and working with new media.
This is a bit of a dream come true.
Pay-per-view, satellite TV.
Very proud of Amir. What he done was fantastic.
Bringing shows in from America Live. I've been lucky enough to promote some of the biggest names in boxing.
I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Warren for having me over here.
Just when you think it can't get any bigger, my mobile rang. We get this call from His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. Off we went to the races. I'm as competitive as my fighters, and I fight for my fighters. I'm always looking for the next challenge, and I know there's one there now.
Queensbury arrives at the home of boxing, DAZN, multi-year deal, let's go.
This is a company that is devoted to boxing. They have a worldwide platform. And for us, that is very, very important to do what Queensbury is doing, to be expanding and building, working together for the betterment of boxing, as I believe it will be.
Greatness comes to DAZN this summer. The world's best players will be summoned together to decide the greatest club on earth.
Vinicius, great chance to score.
Goats will battle Wonder Kids. Fire will meet ice. From Boca to Bayern, PSG to Palmeiras, 32 clubs from across the globe will compete. to be crowned
Rodrigo. What a strike that
world champion. And this summer, Haaland won't be watching from home, but you can, on DAZN. In every country in the world. FIFA Club World Cup. Watch on DAZN from the 14th of June.
On Saturday, we are live from Southend as they take on Oldham Athletic. Both sides are right in the mix for a playoff place, and our coverage begins from 5:15 for that one. On Tuesday, the 1st of April, we are live for another evening of Multi-Match Live, with 3 games as Aldershot take on Fylde, a huge clash at the bottom as Wealdstone face Boston, and Woking take on Rochdale. Join us live on DAZN from 7:30. I'm delighted to say we are joined by Bromley manager Andy Woodman. Over 200 games in charge at Bromley. It's been some ride, hasn't it?
It's been it's been a really good roller coaster, if there's such a thing. It has been a roller coaster. I'm extremely proud of the journey the club's gone on, and obviously, you know, who wouldn't be, you know, to take a club like Bromley into the league, which is fairy tale stuff. But there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of sleepless nights, not just by me, but by everyone around the club, which you've probably seen a lot of people at the club today, how hard they all work. So as much as I get a lot of the plaudits, and you know, that's nice, I know there's a lot more people around the club that deserve the plaudits along with me, that have put a lot of graft into making this club a league club.
Back in the beginning, you're coaching at Arsenal, one of the best teams in the Premier League, if I do say so myself. When that conversation is on the table to join Bromley, what is going through your mind? How difficult was that decision?
It weirdly wasn't a difficult decision, as crazy as that sounds, because I kind of always felt that I wanted to be a manager, but I could never see where that would open up for me, you know, being realistic. You know, there's 92 jobs in the league. There's, you know, outside of that, some non-league jobs. And I couldn't see where it was going to open up. So I kind of resigned myself to the fact that I was probably going to be a head of goalkeeping. You know, that was going to be my career to the end. And then the opportunity come up to be a manager of Bromley. And I just said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. You know, and I actually said to the owner, I'll only do it to the end of the season. I don't want no contract. Let's both see if it works for both of us. And when I think about that, that was even crazy, just to do it without a contract or do it without any sort of security. When I went home and told my wife I was leaving Arsenal and coming to Bromley to be manager, and oh, by the way, how long's your contract? Oh no, I just done it to the end of the season and see where it leads us. It went down like a lead balloon, you can imagine. And when I look back, I think, what was I thinking? But there was something in my stomach that told me that this was the next move for me.
You know, how would you define your culture that you've installed in Bromley?
Yeah, I think I've got this policy about don't have idiots around me. Don't have you know, players that like the idea of being a professional footballer but don't really know what it takes to be a professional footballer. I'm blessed that I've got a son that plays football, so I know that the sort of level of work he puts in to be the level he's at, and I know them being at Arsenal, the level of those players and the commitment and the you know, the whole desire, the whole discipline to be at that level, what they put in. So I wanted to make sure that I had a group of players, and it wasn't going to be straight away, but I changed the culture, and you automatically see if people want to come with that culture or the ones that resist it. And you always have ones that resist it. Well, we never done it like this. The other manager never done this. You straight away know in your head, right, you're not with me. And you get it really clear in your head. You can't do nothing about it, by the way, straight away, but you've got to make sure you're clear in your head, you're not with me. And the ones that are with you, you know, they buy into it, and you hope then it's infectious to the others. When I went to Arsenal, and I have to sort of say the Arsenal, it was another level. Everything was another level. You know, just the whole culture of the club. You know, you couldn't walk around Arsenal without seeing the cannon everywhere. I mean, it was embedded in your head, this cannon. So a little thing when I come to this football club, I said to the owner, like, he was telling me about the plans to do this, to do it. He said, you know, what do you want to bring to the club? I said, I want a Bromley badge everywhere. And he kind of looked at me, what? I said, because that's what we've got at Arsenal. It's embedded in us. I said, we're not Arsenal, but let's make sure people realise what they're playing for. This badge, this club, buy into this football club, because So many players, as we know, they're mercenaries. They come in, they get the money, they worry about the training, get home, worry about the next move, next club. I want people to be invested into this football club because I'm invested into it. My owner's invested into it. Mark Hammond's invested into it. So we all want this success. So that was the sort of start of it. Everyone being invested into this football club.
You're very well connected in the football world. Obviously, Sir Gareth Southgate, a very good friend of yours. Did you pick up the phone to him to let him know what you were doing? And did he give you any advice coming into management?
Yeah, I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't speak to everyone in the game. You know, Gareth's obviously the obvious name that comes to mind. We've had many a chat about, you know, when he was England manager, he's telling me his problems at the England end. I'm telling him mine.
I'm in a porter cabin.
It's really bizarre. You know, we're talking about the same problems at different levels. It's really funny. You know, I'm telling him mine. He said, yeah, I've got that same problem at a different level. So we've had many a chat like that. You know, and you know, Alan Pardew, I worked with Alan Pardew for years. Alan Pardew's down here pretty much every week watching a game. He'll ring me up. I mean, when early on in my journey, he'd be making notes. And he'd be saying, look, did you look at that, thought of that? It's been brilliant. You know, I've been blessed to have these people that are friends of mine that have taken a real vested interest into my development as a manager and our friendship of, you know, them seeing me have my moment as a manager. So I've tapped into everybody, you know, I really have. And I continue to do that. You know, I'm by no means the finished article and I'm by no means Ancelotti yet, but you can never stop learning. And I think that's the thing I've got to make sure that I keep, you know, my mind open to.
What did you make of the level of football when you took that first training session, first league game? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was an eye-opener in one breath, you know, because I felt, how can I say this without being disrespectful? I felt that sometimes some of the players thought they were way better than they were, and some of the players actually were way better than I thought. So it was a bit of a mix. And what I had to do is blend what I thought was a style of football, the one that I thought would get success in the league, two that would play that surface out there because we had the AstroTurf pitch, and three that would be kind of entertaining. And I'm not caught up in this entertaining the crowd. I know that sounds horrible, but because I believe any fantasies winning football is entertained. That's all they want. They can say, well, he didn't part. They just want to see the win. That's all they really care about. So I had to get that blend right and making sure that we was getting points on the board and we were getting a mentality to win football matches. And that was very important. The best advice I had was an old manager of mine, Ian Atkins, used to be my manager at Northampton. Day one, I got the job, he rung me. I still go back to his words, set your team up not to get beat. I said, really? He said, yep, don't worry about winning, set your team up not to get beat. He said, because you'll create chances, that naturally happen. But just make sure your team is solid. And I kind of went with that basis, and we went first game away to Stockport. They were top of the table. We went with a team of kids and whoever it was playing, and we got a 0-0, and that was our first game live on telly. And I kind of went away from there with a little bit of confidence of what he had told me. So everywhere in your journey, you take a little bit of something and try to put it into your way of managing.
As a club, academy-wise, you've produced some fantastic players. How important has that, the academy side of the club, been to you? And is that important to you to be bringing these youngsters through?
The academy, we call it the academy, and I'm not disrespecting it. It's a college scheme, so it's not like an Arsenal academy where I've come from. You know, where it's like, you know, you can imagine that level.
It's got its own building.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, but we've got a lot of boys come through that have got a desire to be a professional footballer and a dream. It's very important to me. I've been like yourself. I've been blessed to be a footballer in my career. I've been blessed to watch my son go through and have a career. And there's nothing that gives me greater pleasure than giving a kid a chance to be a professional footballer. My biggest sort of highs at Arsenal was seeing young players go on to become, I'm going to use the obvious one, Bukayo Saka, see him come through as a 14, 15-year-old boy and then go on to what he's doing and still be the same great kid. I'm no different here. These boys in this academy, they're hungry to be footballers. They see me out there every day. They see boys get into my team. It gives them real belief that they can get in there. And why shouldn't they have that belief and that chance? So that means everything to me.
Well, before we go on to this, you know, the actual promotion and how you're doing in the Football League, just talk about that season, the promotion season, because you started the season off terribly. I remember speaking to you at the beginning. 2 points in the first 5 games. And we're looking and thinking, well, maybe they've got a hangover from last season. You know, there's probably going to be a tail off. There wasn't, you know, and you always believed. You said to me, once we get through this first 5 games, we'll kick on and we'll go on and we've got a great chance of getting promoted. What was it that made you so confident at that time?
We had the first 5 games. I remember the first 5 games took us pretty much to the end of the August window. Whether we like it or not, we're last pick for clubs to come on loan. We are last pick. You know, they want to go to League 2, League 1. No, thanks for the interest, but we've got higher aspirations coming to you. So I know I'm last pick. I equally know that all these players are not going to get their loans because the numbers just don't add up. So I had that in my back of my head. If I can get 2 or 3 of these players come through the door as a sort of like, I always wanted to come to you, I was just waiting, you know, and you know they didn't.
Yeah.
We're our last bit. So I knew if I get a couple of those in the door, that would help. I had a player that had been out injured that was going to come back, or two players I think I remember that were out injured. I had another player that was serving a 2-game suspension from his last club before. And then I had two players sent off in those first 5 games. So I had kind of everything in those first 5 games. I knew if I could keep everyone calm, particularly my owner, because, you know, he's kind of looking, thinking, same as what you said. But I just felt if I could get past that window and that shuts and I've got my team in and everyone knows we're here now, I could get us going. We then went on a 17 unbeaten run. It was amazing. The run the lads put together was phenomenal. And I remember there was one game, it was, I'm thinking Kidderminster away, I think it was. I'm sure we got a 0-0. We got down to 10 men. We hung on. We got a 0-0 there. And that was probably our second point, if I remember rightly. I knew at that point, my owner rung me up and he was not happy. In a nice way, you know, that I'm not accepting this, we're second at the bottom. And I said to him, we'll be right now. And he said, what makes you say? And I said, because we just ground out a result that we should never have got. And the way we've ground it out is the DNA of us. I can see it and it come through. And the DNA of us was exactly what we were. We were a fighting, scrapping, never say die team. And we had legs and energy. And we had a little bit of quality up top with Michael Cheek. You know, you can't get away from that name. You know, he'd done that final bit, the cherry on the top for us at the end of the pitch.
So what do you remember from that playoff final day? Obviously, I can imagine as a manager, it must be playing on the heart quite a lot.
It's funny because the build-up, we got everything right in the build-up to it. You know, we'd had the playoffs through the couple of years and I'd got things wrong. I admit that. I probably got too high with the lads and too giddy with them and they probably couldn't take it on board, so I learnt from that. We stayed at hotels where I thought, it's too much time for us to think. So we had that option that the owner said, where do you want to stay? I said, centre of London. He said, centre? I said, right in the centre of London. Why? I said, so the lads can go and have a coffee. They can forget about the game. It was a bit of a gamble, but we stayed right in the centre of London. I remember walking around the day before the game in Selfridges and the lads were all in there shopping and now that would make people's hair curl. But I just felt I had to take the sting out of the game for the lads and make it like a normal weekend. So that happened. Then we'd done a load of other stuff building up to the game, which worked quite well. I got messages from their family, etc. That blew them away. But we kind of kept it as normal as possible without the fault of the game. And then on the day of the game, we was ready. I could just feel we was ready. The preparation we'd done, the going into the game, the warm-up, it just felt right. I had no moment in me that we'd lose that game. I really didn't. And I know that sounds easy to say now. And when we went in front, I thought, we've got this. And then we hit the wall at 60 minutes, 65 minutes. We looked like we was dead on our feet. And they'd got momentum. And I thought, wow, we've just got to get to it. We've got to get to extra time here. And we got to extra time. I knew at that point, we're fine. Because we are the fittest team. I knew we was the fittest team. Then it went to penalties. And I still felt we was fine. But little did I know it'd come down to the last penalty. I mean, if you'd have said to me, I wasn't calm. I looked probably calm. But I just thought, well, look, it's all out of my hands now. It's, you know, we've practiced this. We know we've got the penalty takers. We've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. I can't stress it. The level of detail we've gone through. Everyone knew their job. Everyone knew their role. And I just felt that we've prepared and prepped for everything now. If we don't get across the line, then the football gods ain't with us. And thankfully they was on that last kick of the match.
How much did that promotion mean to to the club?
It was probably more than I'd probably ever imagined. You know, not only the club, the town, the area, the owner. There was so much, not just money, but there was a lot of money invested into this football club, and it's all geared to getting out of the league. It was so geared, and you can still, even now, it's so geared to getting out of the league. So there was a huge amount of personal money invested by the owner. There was also a huge amount of people around the club that invested so much time. You know, there's people in that office that have done 25 years here. When you start hearing that, and then you see people that work at the club and work around the club for nothing, they've been here for years, it starts dawning on you then that, wow, if I'd have known that, I might have been a bit more nervous of how much was riding on it. And it was only after that, and when we'd done the open top bus up the town, which was brilliant, you know, everyone come out in the town, that was kind of a funny moment. We're going up the town on the open top bus, and I wear my cap, and I only wear it, I've only ever worn it because the sun's on that side of the pitch, that's how it started, and I can't see the, you know, when the sun's out. And I kind of just stuck with it. So I wore my cap on the open top bus, we went up town, everyone's buzzing, they're cheering, we're in the town centre, and then I thought, right, I've had enough now, I want to go home. So I kind of took the cap off, and I literally walked through the crowd, and not one person stopped me. It was brilliant. I walked through like that. I'd gone from everyone cheering me on this bus, took my cap off, and not one person stopped me. It was brilliant.
That's so good.
I thought, well, look, you're quite not as famous as you think. And so that was a nice moment. But it was brilliant for the whole town.
In terms of how you've done this season, you're sitting in the middle of the league table, you still got half an eye on looking at the playoffs. But how pleased have you been with how the lads have reacted to life in the EFL? Yeah, the lads have been great. I think at the beginning of the season, I kind of went on record of saying we'll make the playoffs. And I think one or two people thought I was a little bit confident, a little bit probably batting above my station. But I had to give a belief that I think we can do it. Because if I go into those group of players and say, look, we're just going to try to stay up, it's going to be like a nightmare season. They're going to just think, well, we'll win one, we'll just do enough. And I'm not wired that way, and I certainly don't want my team to be wired that way. So from day one, I said, we'll make the playoffs, and I've kept driving them, and if we don't make the playoffs, and I'm not saying we won't, because I've just shown you some stats and numbers there, and we're keeping it alive, and we've got a big game this weekend, and it could be kept alive. But if we don't have a target to hit, guess what? We're not going to hit any target. And I'm a big believer of that. We can reevaluate our target. And if we have to reevaluate and it has to be top 10 finish, let's aim for that. Well, then let's aim for that. If we have to rechange it, if we have to be top 16 finish, let's change it. But we have to shoot for the stars.
Andy, we've taken up enough of your time that the lights in your office have now switched off. So a perfect time to say thank you so much for your time, pal. We wish you all the best for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much for your time and support as always. Lovely to see you, my friend. Cheers. Thank you very much.
On Saturday, we are live from Southend as they take on Oldham Athletic. Both sides are right in the mix for a playoff place, and our coverage begins from 5:15 for that one. On Tuesday, the 1st of April, we are live for another evening of Multi-Match Live, with 3 games as Aldershot take on Fylde, a huge clash at the bottom as Wealdstone face Boston, and Woking take on Rochdale. Join us live on DAZN from 7:30. The biggest football names are coming to DAZN as we look forward to the FIFA Club World Cup exclusively live on DAZN. Catch every game from June 14th.